Here is a daily challenge for you Game of Life enthusiasts out there, or for anyone who likes computational puzzles. It's really simple. Consider Conway's Game of Life on a grid made of 16 by 16 cells that wrap around at the edges, which makes the grid a torus, topologically speaking. Every day we want to find the longest lived pattern that evolves from a random starting configuration, so-called soups, but there is a twist. For each pattern we calculate a hash value, a string of letters and numbers that is determined by its initial configuration using a mathematical function. Think of this hash value as the pattern's unique fingerprint. Now, to make this a daily challenge, we stipulate that the hash value for every competing pattern must contain today's date, for example in the form MMDD. We then look at all such Game of Life patterns that we found with today's date in their respective hash values and rank them by how long they live before they reach a halting state. Oh, and before you get any ideas, you won't be able to pre-calculate Game of Life patterns for a future date. The hash value we calculate takes in not only the pattern's configuration, but also a salt, a randomly generated value that cannot be determined in advance. For our challenge, we use the Randomness Beacon issued by the US National Institute of Standards and Technology, specifically the first value generated after midnight UTC. Do you want to participate? It's quick, it's easy, and it's free, just like pouring river water down your socks. Hop over to our site and put in a username. There is no registration or login required. Once you have confirmed your name, just slide on the auto hash mode and the calculation engine will do the rest. The top canvas is the seeker node, which sifts through arbitrary Game of Life configurations and calculates the hash values. Once the seeker finds a pattern whose hash value contains today's date, it transfers the configuration to the explorer node on the bottom. On the explorer node, the Game of Life pattern is evolved according to B3S23 rules, and its properties are calculated, the most important one being the number of generations your pattern lives before it terminates. Once the explorer has determined the generational count of your pattern, it automatically submits it to the daily ranking. It will take about 30 seconds for your entry to appear on the left-hand side, provided that your pattern lives long enough to be featured on the leaderboard. Our algorithm checks Game of Life evolutions for repeating generations and terminates once a pattern enters into a loop. We do this to prevent patterns from repeating infinitely, for example gliders that wrap around the torus forever. This distinction is why we call those specific Game of Life patterns Conway Glyphs as a shorthand. Every pattern's rank on the leaderboard is determined by S.G.P.I, suite, generations, peak, and index. Now, what does that mean? Today's date can appear in 3 formats, which constitute the suites. These 3 suites are the first level according to which a pattern is evaluated. Naturally, it is much easier to find a suite 4 pattern than a suite 6 or a suite 8, so the different suites have separate leaderboards. The second level is the number of generations the pattern evolves before reaching a halting state. The higher this value is, the higher this pattern will be ranked. The third level is the peak metric. It looks at all 256 cells for the pattern over its evolution and counts how many times each cell has been alive before the pattern halts. The highest alive count for these 256 cells is the peak. The higher your pattern's peak, the higher your ranking. It's a metric we came up with during our research into these glyphs that serves as a proxy for spatio-temporal density of a pattern. I explained the background of this metric in a separate video. The fourth and final level is the index at which place in the hash string the date appears. A date that appears right at the start of the hash string is higher ranked than a date that appears towards the middle or the end. So the lower the index, the higher the rank. Here is an example for the full ranking according to all 4 levels. 4.189.56.23 denotes a 4-suite pattern with 189 non-repeating generations, a peak count of 56, and that today's date was found at position 23 in the hash string. The leaderboard resets daily, but we also feature weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual, and all-time champion lists. Your participation will contribute to exploring the space of Conway Glyphs. Think of it as SETI at home, but for Game of Life. If you found a particularly interesting pattern, regardless of rank, let us know. Post your discoveries on x.com, #DailyConwayGlyphChallenge. See you out there.